It is my pleasure today to introduce our guest speaker, Reverend Keith Cox. He has a wicked sense of humor, and I'm sure he needs it. He is in charge of the youth program for Centers for Spiritual Living, and I've dealt with the youth. Yes, give him a hand. I've heard Reverend Keith on several occasions, and I'll tell you, he always gives us a chuckle and at the same time lifts us up so high. So it is my honor and my pleasure to introduce to you Reverend Keith Cox.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you. I love that soul music there, Andy Howe. So I'm going to do this little soul train. Soul train. Good morning, everyone. And good morning to everyone live streaming. I'm really happy to be here with you at CSL Simi Valley. It's an extension of a spiritual home for me, so it's a real pleasure to be here with you and see so many familiar faces and new faces as well. That was a beautiful song. Thank you, and it tied right into what we're going to be talking about this morning or addressing. Excuse me. So I'm going to begin this morning by sharing a story with you. Miss Beatrice, the church organist, was in her 80s and had never been married. She was admired for sweetness and her kindness to all. So one afternoon, the pastor came to call on her, and when he did, she showed him into her quaint sitting room. Here we go, this one. Into her quaint sitting room. She invited him to have a seat while she prepared tea. So he took a seat, she prepared the tea, and he sat there looking at her pump organ, the old pump organ, you know the kind? Where's the music coming from? Okay, I didn't request that. Okay, and if I had, it would have had more of a disco beat. Okay, let's get back to the pastor and Miss Beatrice, right? All right, so the pastor's sitting there looking at the old pump organ in Miss Beatrice's living room, or probably her sitting room, and he noticed that there was a cut glass bowl sitting on top of it, which was filled with water. And in the water, there was something floating. As he looked at it, he realized that what was floating in the water was a condom. So she returned to the room with tea and scones, and he and Miss Beatrice began to chat. The pastor sit there trying to stifle his curiosity above the bowl of water and about that sitting there and that strange floater in the water, but it soon got the best of him, and he could no longer resist. And so he said, Miss Beatrice, I wonder if you could tell me about this, pointing to that which was floating in the water. And she replied, oh, yes. Isn't it wonderful? I was walking through the park a few months ago, and I found this little sealed package on the ground. The directions said, take it out of the package, place it on the organ, keep it wet, and then it would prevent the spread of disease. She went on to say, do you know I haven't had the flu all season? Now, so there's your chuckle. You asked for it, right? So the title of my message this morning is Setting Your Beliefs in Motion. Think about that for a second, as if you were Miss Beatrice. Setting your beliefs in motion. This morning, it's my goal and my intention to inspire you, each and every one of us, and you collectively as a community, to ask yourselves, what beliefs do you have or hold in your life that you might want to get rid of? What beliefs that you may have in your life that you want to enhance and experience more of? And what beliefs that you think may exist in your consciousness or subconsciousness that may be something that you hold as an impossibility? Now, when I looked up the word belief this morning, or yesterday actually, in the thesaurus, these are the words that came up relative to belief. Faith, which I know is your word of today, conviction, principle, and idea. So if you and I were to agree with that which I've kind of challenged you to do this morning in looking at your beliefs, and actually Maureen challenged as well earlier this morning in asking us what do we have the courage to do or to be, for us to experience the change of that which we seek in our lives, what we must be willing to do is to change. But what is it that we're to change is the question. Well, I think the 13th century poet Rumi addresses it the best way. He says, yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today, I am wise, so I am changing myself. So let's hear that again. Yesterday, I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today, I am wise, so I'm changing myself. So if we're here to change ourselves, which might be in the external, by means of changing our physical appearance, by changing our bank accounts, by changing anything in that external, what we know as metaphysicians is that what we must change first and foremost is our state of mind. It all begins and ends with our state of mind. And so this morning, once again, I challenge you to go deep within your soul into that place where we were just told in our beautiful meditation to go deeper and allow that to be delved up and brought forward, that which we didn't really know exists, but let it come forward and question it as to why does that belief exist in our life? What is it that we may have faith in or faith according to that we're not even conscious of? But yet that there's some calling deep within us that we know that our desire is to experience a greater life, which ultimately will indeed change the world by changing ourselves. What is that? Well, I know for myself years ago, which was actually now 30-something years ago, that I came into this teaching, what spoke to me more than anything was this statement: change your thinking, change your life. And as a young man of 22 years old walking into the Atlanta Church of Religious Science, that was a new concept for me. Having been raised Southern Baptist, had an exorcism pretty much for activities I had done at the church. We'll talk about that in our meeting later if you want. What had come up for me at that time was I knew in my life that there was a spiritual presence that existed. But I was really, 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 really clear that the God that had been taught to me that existed, which was a God of condemnation, a God of disapproval, a God that was one of creation and yet was contradictory at the same time, did not necessarily align with what I knew myself to be. I knew that inasmuch as I may have been different in the world from the world I was living in, that I, as an expression of that which is the allness, the wholeness, the oneness of life, could not be any less than any other expression of that. And so I knew for me to have a different experience in life, one where I felt as if I was in alignment with my wholeness, one of knowing who I was as a spiritual being, and for me to have a different experience going forward in my life, I had to change my thinking so that I could change the life that I was leading and living. So why is it important for us to change our thinking? Well, Miss Beatrice showed us it's important for us to understand that we must change our thinking, because her thinking was that she could use a condom to prevent the flu, right? Now, we know that that's probably not true. Has it worked for any of you? Who all had the flu this week? No. What I think is important by the concept of changing your thinking, changing your life, is understanding the philosophy of the principles of the teaching of the science of mind. And it is that for you and I to experience and express the greatness of the divine that is inherently within each and every one of us, what we must do first and foremost is know what it is that we believe. We must know what it is that we believe and then have the courage to challenge that belief constantly. And then take it one step further and know our own minds. This week, I was grappling back and forth, and I have been for really the last 10 days, with having that cough and that crud and that whole thing. And I was really clear that I wasn't getting it. And I would say to my friends and my family, I'm really clear I'm not getting this thing. What did I get Thursday morning? The thing, right? But what I also knew was I had to know my mind well enough to know that what I needed to do was to pick up the phone, make a phone call, and phone in a renewal of a prescription for a Z-Pack, right? Why is that? Because within my mind, I know that there is intelligence. And on the plane of the universe, there's also an intelligence. And so by aligning my spiritual nature, which is intelligence, with activation, reaching out, making that phone call, I could attract into my world that which would participate in that revelationary thing called healing, which it's done. So what was important to me, and I know it's important for each of you, is know what you believe. Is it possible for you to heal yourself without a Z-Pack? Maybe, maybe not. But if for me it wasn't, I couldn't do it. I tried, didn't work. But what I also knew was that it was important for me to know my mind. And what was important to do in that moment was to reach out. Last week, I was speaking at an ordination. And it's a small center, and their minister, it was wonderful that he was being ordained, and his congregation was being very specific in how they wanted him to look. And they were really pretty gruff with him. And then they got up, and one of the things they talked about was how what was most important for them was that they wanted to see their parking lot filled with cars. Great idea, right? Except I got up there and said to them, well, have you envisioned or visualized the people that come in those cars? Do they walk into your center, or do they pay $10 just to park and then they go down the street to the Lutheran church? Really? Now, you guys didn't like that, huh? So it's true. And especially being a community where you're just about to attract into your world a new spiritual leader. So it's important for you to know what is important to you and why it's important for you to know what you believe and know what your mind says, what it wants to experience, what it wants to express. Now, what I'm sharing with you this morning about the concept of knowing your mind and beliefs is really basic metaphysical stuff. Do you guys not agree with that? But I think that we all have the opportunity each and every day to step back and renew our beliefs in regards to this teaching. Because the teaching, in it as much as it in of itself does not change, our approach and understanding to it does. And it's by the constant use of this teaching, the understanding that all there is that God, all that we individualize that power, that we not only are one with it, but the spiritual laws of the universe bring forth through us an experience that's equal to that which we believe. It's important to know that over and over and over because we're evolving metaphysicians, and as we evolve into a greater understanding of who we are, the law is going to bring to us a different experience. This is how Ernest Holmes addressed that. He says, our mind and spirit is the echo of the eternal thing itself. And the sooner that we discover this fact, the sooner we shall be made free and happy. Now, how many of you in this room today would like to be freer? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? Okay, 5 of you would not. Personally, I would like to be freer. I'd like to be freer of fear, freer of limitation, freer of the concept of what aging might look like, freer of many ideas that aren't serving me into the full expression of who I am as a spiritual being. And how many of you would like to be happier? Everyone in the room and the God person that's calling. Of course we want to be happier because one of our qualities of God that we are imbued with is joy. And happiness is an outpicturing of joy. And so, of course, we want to be happier. And what Ernest is telling us here is that our mind and spirit, which is the mind and spirit of life itself, is the echo, the reverberation, the imitation, if you will, of the eternal thing itself. That omnipresent power that exists in the universe, we, by means of it, are echoing it over and over and over and over again. And the more that we engage that, which he's saying, the more that we discover that fact and utilize it, then the sooner we will be made free and happy. He goes on to write, the universe is filled with spirit and filled with law. One reacts to the other. And obviously that is true. One reacts to the other, but they're also interconnected. What he's telling us is that the universe itself is filled with spirit and filled with law, and one reacts to the other. He says we, as individualizations of this spirit, are the spirit and we are the law. He says the law of our life reacts to our spiritual or material concepts. That's what the law of our life reacts to, our concepts of what it is, not the stuff itself. And it's out of these concepts, this evolving consciousness, if we choose to have that, then we will be allowed to build and rebuild according to our beliefs and our faith in it. So if we're here to create a shift today, and how many here would like to have a shift in your life? All of us, for sure. Years ago at teen camp, we had, the theme of our camp was Shift Happens. And it was a big S, big H, big I, little f, big T, right? Picture it. And we had kids kicked out of school because of that, right? But what I really want you to think about today is how often in your life is the F not present? Is your life more prevalent F-less? Or is the F there? Think about it. Well, for me, I prefer to have more F in my life so that shift is more present. So how do we invoke the change? Well, here's how we do it. Oops, I think I already did that. So if you look at this slide by the infamous search quotes, the moment you can visualize being, got that? The moment you can visualize being free from the things that hold you back, you have indeed begun to set yourself free. What it's telling us, if our goal is to be freer and happier, which we just all agreed it is that what our responsibility to do in that process is to begin to visualize ourselves being freer, to begin visualize ourselves being happier, to use our creative intelligence, if you will, first and foremost as the first step. That we don't have to see the end result all the time. It's just like we were just told by Reverend Maggie, to take the first step up the mountain. And that's what we're to do when we choose to be freer and happier, is to take the first step of visualizing ourselves being freer and happier. And it's from that process we will then begin to experience more and more and more of that which we desire. But we can only do that when we choose to know that we are the thing itself, that we are that ever-present life that exists already, and understand that it is our nature to transform. It is our nature to move beyond that which was into that which can be. Now, I love this little graphic that I have on the screen right now, because it's obviously the caterpillar and the butterfly, which is truly a literal metaphor of transformation. And we've all heard it before, right? And I thought, oh, what a great thing to add into my talk today. But I began to research yesterday while prepping this talk, how does that really look? And it's actually a really disgusting, gross process. However, the outcome is quite beautiful, and something that we hold quite dear as almost the ultimate in life, right? The butterfly floating along with all of its beauty, sort of defying gravity because it weighs nothing, right? And yet what is required for that to happen is really an interesting process. So I'm going to define it for you in more beautiful terms in all of its glory. To become a butterfly, a caterpillar first digests itself. But certain groups of cells survive, turning the soup into eyes, wings, antennae, and other adult structures. As children, many of us learn about the wondrous process by which a caterpillar morphs into a butterfly. The story usually begins with a very hungry caterpillar hatching from an egg. The caterpillar, or what is more scientifically termed as larva, stuffs itself with leaves, growing plumper and longer through a series of molts in which it sheds its skin. One day, the caterpillar stops eating. That would be a great thing. The caterpillar stops eating, hangs upside down from a twig or a leaf, and spins itself into a silky cocoon or molts into a shiny chrysalis. Within its protective casing, the caterpillar radically transforms its body, eventually emerging as a butterfly or a moth. So I ask you today, are you willing to digest yourself, meaning take that which is no longer serving you and rid yourself of it through the digestive process, meaning the transformational process of life, so that what might emerge through that experience for you is that which seems to be an impossibility? Because looking at a butterfly, one would believe that it is impossible that it could indeed fly, right? So the goal for us is to challenge that in our life which we choose to be as something that is impossible. The great Muhammad Ali has a wonderful statement. It's a quote from him, and is this: "Impossible is just a big word thrown around by small men who find it easier to live in the world they've been given than to explore the power they have to change it." He goes on to say, impossible is not a fact, it's an opinion. Impossible is not a declaration, it's a dare. Impossible is potential. Impossible is temporary. Impossible is nothing. So I ask you today, where in your life are you willing to engage that which you have previously thought as impossible, so that it may become possible? Just recently, we were with our group of teens, teen leadership in Orange County, prepping for our big winter camp series. And we've the whole theme for the beginning of this process was coming out of the spiritual closet. All these teens have been talking about how they love camp and they love everything that this teaching does, and yet they only practice it when they're with their collective group of people. And yet what they want more than anything is growth. And so what I was sharing with them is you can't have the growth if you're continuing to stay inclusive. What must unfold for you is you must be exclusive. You must be inclusive by opening yourself up and inviting others in. And for that to happen, you must come out of the spiritual closet. You can't just be a metaphysician with your friends from camp. And so we created this whole process where we created vision statements for our regional camps. And then we assigned with our leaders to work with practitioners on a weekly basis. And for a 10-week period, we went through that entire process over and over and over again, doing the spiritual work that is required for transformation to take place. And at the end of that, with us decreasing the number of advisors for camp, increasing the cost of camp by about 12%, we ended up with an overall increase of our camp numbers by 33%. Right? That's cool. Now, I share that with you this morning, not only just to share a wonderful demonstration, which is wonderful for all of us, but to inspire you to think anew as a spiritual congregation of what is possible for you when you're attracting your new spiritual leader. Are you willing to do the work that is required to digest yourself through the ingestion process, so what you will then reveal is a beautiful butterfly known as your spiritual leader? Reverend Butterfly. That's who you're attracting, right? You're attracting to your world Reverend Butterfly. So that's going to be what you're bringing. No longer Reverend Caterpillar, it's Reverend Butterfly. Reverend Caterpillar has gone on to drink wine, right? Right? What you're bringing into your world now is Reverend Butterfly. And the thing that's so important and wonderful in that process is that it is up to you. It's up to you. You may not have invited the change in, but it's here. Boys and girls, men and women, and everything in between. It's here. What are you going to do with it? Is what matters. Well, using this process is the way to help you attract that which you desire, which is knowing that there's only one power ever taking place in the universe, that each of us individually and collectively, we express this power, that by turning it over and understanding that the law of life never, ever, 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 ever fails, because it can't, then what it will bring to you is a new outcome. And when that new outcome shows up, embrace it. Open your arms and your heart and embrace it, and just know that it is a reflection, it is an echo, it is a reverberation of you knowing that you are the eternal thing itself, and then dive right back in again with the cycle. And if you do that, that's my dare for you today, you will attract into your world that which will literally rock your world, which is what I know each and every one of us want. Now, the rocking of your world might look a little bit different for each and every one of us. What rocks my world might not rock your world, right? And what rocks your world might not rock your world. But I know ultimately the equation of rocking our world brings us more freedom, and it brings us more happiness. For what I do know as Reverend Butterfly, not me, but the ones coming, is that what you are comes to you, Ralph Waldo Emerson says to us. What you are comes to you. So I ask you this morning to ask yourself in a deeper way than ever before, what do you believe? What do you believe? What do you believe about yourself? What do you believe about God? Are you hanging on to any old ideology, any old paradigm, any old belief system whatsoever, that the God that exists out there is the one that can be punitive? Do you have any belief whatsoever that the God out there that exists in this universe can fail you? Or do you believe that there is a power within you that exists universally, that its nature is not to fail because it can't, that its nature is to bring more and more and more of itself, which we define as having the qualities of peace, power, beauty, light, life, love, and joy into your life? If that's what you choose to believe, you can experience more and more and more and more of that by choosing to express more and more and more and more of that. But the key to that lies within your choice of how you choose to change. Well, when is the time to change? Right now. It's today. Today is the day to choose to think anew. Today is the day to choose to ingest your old ideas. Today is the day to let go of any false beliefs, of anything in life that may not serve you. Today's the day to laugh a little more. Today's the day to know that behind you is an infinite power, that before you is endless possibility, and around you is boundless opportunity.
Today's the 8th, though, not the 9th.
So today is the 8th, not the 9th. And just so we all know, calendars were made up by humanity. So I choose to believe it's the 9th. And it's my world. So I'm living in it. So in your world, it might be the 8th. You know what? I say we never have enough straight men in the world. Plenty of butterflies, but not enough straight men. Shall we continue to bump, bump, ching? No, it's bump, bump, ching. There we go. My own little symbol. I love that. I hope that today I've not only brought you joy, but I've stimulated you to think a little bit differently than before. I really hope that when this time that we share together ends, that you choose to not only look at your life from a new perspective, but you look at the life of the Center for Spiritual Living, Simi Valley, from a new set of eyes. And not just from a new set of visual eyes. You'll have that opportunity as time unfolds. But from a new set of eyes that exist within you. That voice that is eternal, that we all share. That viewpoint that is universal, that we all share. But from that place that makes you unique. My favorite quote of Ernest Holmes is, "Spirit has placed the stamp of individuality upon itself and called it you." So today I really invite you and challenge you, potentially dare you, to choose to know you as a divine being in a greater way than ever before. And then embrace that with a little courage, live a little more frivolously with it, and then choose to ask yourself over and over and over and over again, what is the more of me that I can bring to the world? What is the more of me as God that I can share with the world? And what is the more of me as God that I'm willing to allow to be present in my life, so that I know without a shadow of a doubt that freedom and joy and happiness is my divine right, and therefore I choose to live it fully all the time. Have a great Sunday, February 9th, 2015. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you.